Welcome to the Amplifying Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Tara Lehman, a partner, coach, and consultant at Twin Life Coaching and Business Services, of which Amplifying Leadership is a division. This podcast is a place dedicated to amplifying your leadership through our guest stories, tips, information, and more. To learn more about our leadership division, please visit us at amplifyingleadership.ca. Today, I am welcoming Julie Wignal, whose focus is leadership development and strategy, and who is also community creator, author, speaker, and unconventional activist. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
I'm excited to talk with you today, but let's start with our audience knowing a little bit more about you, your leadership story. What would you like to share?
Well, let me begin by saying I have a very unconventional background. I call myself an unconventional activist because I got where I am through very unconventional pathways. I have worked in national politics, international business. I have a very strong background in marine biology and working with aquarium, zoos, and museums, Fortune 500 companies, and television in television
Wow.
production. And I have 2 series that have been internationally distributed. So that's not one path.
That's a diverse path. That's what that is. Excellent.
And that's why I call it unconventional. And I use that term a lot because it's not rebellious. It's not to be interruptive or disruptive. It's just to say there's a different way. And when enough of us do things that are unconventional, these things become the conventional.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's the concept of the vision of this.
All right. Well, I love it. So, keeping that in mind, how would you define leadership? What is your definition?
My definition of leadership is the ability to guide, to influence, and to motivate individuals or groups toward achieving a common goal. But now that I've told you that, Tara, let me also tell you, I had a background that I rose within the ranks because I was good at what I did, not because I had this background in leadership. So think about this. I studied
Mm.
marine biology in Australia. I came back to the United States and I worked with the National Aquarium and the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. I was good at what I did in terms of taking care of the animals, and I liked people, so I became a good supervisor. But I moved my way all the way up to the top position of director. But nobody had ever taught me leadership
Mm.
skills or management skills that were things I was flying by the seat of my pants just because we're good at tasks or accomplishing certain things does not necessarily make us a good leader. And if you
Yeah.
look around in terms of our corporations, in terms of our nonprofit organizations, people who are really trying to accomplish things need to sit back and realize that we need to develop those leadership skills. Now, interestingly enough, I went to work for a Fortune 500 company and I underwent 13 years of management development programs where I
Wow.
wanted to constantly learn. Well, it wasn't until I left and I began working with different organizations and consulting and doing workshops that I really realized that that had given me all of the ins and outs of management, but it still didn't teach me about what a leader is and
Mm-hmm.
what
Yeah.
that looks like. And I found myself working with people who, like me, very unconventional, had a great vision for what they wanted to accomplish, and realized we all need leadership tools. And I say we all because I've been doing this for years and years and years. I'm still working on developing those
Exactly.
leadership skills.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop. It doesn't, people say, well, where did you go and get your degrees and this and that? I've attended, I think, 9 universities,
Wow.
three graduate schools, and I'm still taking classes today because I'm still learning. And good
Mm-hmm.
leaders are always learning, not just about the world around them, but we also spend time learning about ourselves so that we
Love
know
it.
our strengths and
Yes.
weaknesses. are when we go into any kind of situation, because as a good leader, you want to say, these are my strengths. This is good. I want to also surround myself with people who are strong or maybe strong in areas that I'm not strong in, so that
Hmm.
we have that balance to rise even further to the top.
Love it. And it's interesting. You talk about two things I want to mention is you talk about how we aren't taught how to be leaders. And I was fortunate enough to be in a company that eventually had a leadership the trainer, and then they were trained down. I was one of the trainers, and it was phenomenal. It was great. It built a better culture within the company. But you're right, it needs to be developed continually, like myself as well. I mean, there's no end to leadership development because, I mean, things change too, but we have to develop those skills or even remind ourselves of the skills we may have forgotten. I find with a lot of my clients, the active listening goes away unless they remind themselves to do it again, right?
Right. And
So,
we do,
yeah,
we all need to be continually reminded, or, you'll catch yourself and you'll go, wait a minute, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. And it's
exactly.
having that awareness of yourself as well as everybody else to know how to move forward.
I 100% agree, and I love that you do that because I'm a person who even trains when my leadership training is you don't end here. It's about professional development. So love your definition as well. The words inspiring and guidance and stuff are something that are very key to leaders. The manager versus leader part that you were alluding to. It's different. It really is. Right. So
It's
love
very
that.
It's very, very different. And
Hmm.
a manager, a supervisor, these are your organizational skills, and they're your top captains in terms of
Hmm.
bringing that vision out. But as a leader, you have to have the vision. And having worked with different corporations, different organizations, there's been that old school leadership style where it's like leadership by fear and intimidation.
Hmm.
My vision, and you'll do this or else. And it's terrifying. Working through fear and intimidation, it's a very powerful way to work, but it's not sustainable. The average
No, not
person
at
goes,
all.
I can't do this for so long. And then we've got, our good leaders. Our good leaders will communicate well with their teams. They'll provide support to their team. They've got a strong code of value, but I strive for great leadership. And there's
Hmm.
things that I feel that everybody needs to have to be on the same plane, but then there are different ways to achieve that, which is where I
Hmm.
bring back in that unconventional. Everybody needs, I believe, to know what what mission they're serving, what's giving their life meaning, what goal do they have as to why be that leader in the first place. And it's because
Hmm.
you're visionary. You see something. And in my book, The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies, I describe and I define a firefly, and I use fireflies as that metaphor. I define them as somebody who sees beyond what is to what can be, and then they take action to create
Hmm.
a better world for us all. And that's kind of my leadership in a nutshell. Um, but you have to start by knowing what that vision is. You need
For
to be
sure.
able to express that vision in an exciting way that's going to inspire everyone. But you also, to have people, because you're trying to influence and motivate individuals, you need to have a code of values. And I don't think we talk about that enough.
Hmm.
Um, because why think about anybody that you think of as a leader in your life and you go, well, I follow this person, I believe what they have to say, but why? Because they have a code. First of all, you share in their vision of
Hmm.
what they're striving for, but you also trust them. How do you build up trust? You have a strong code of values. If you say this is, I've got to be ethical, I've got to be transparent, I need to follow this certain course of action. I need to work with integrity. And if you do that and you're consistent to that, you're building up, I'm so sorry, you're building up trust. You're building
Hmm.
up trust among the people that you want them to follow because different situations come up that we don't expect. And that gets back into our strategic
Yes.
planning. It comes up and you go, well, how is this person going to deal? How is this leader going to deal with this new challenge? Politics changes, people change, we're dealing
Mm-hmm.
with climate things. Well, I have faith that this person is going to act with integrity and
Mm-hmm.
values, with a strong value system that they continually show over and over again. And that's really kind of how you weather the storm. Now, that's the part
Mm-hmm.
of the leader side, but it's also, as that leader, really paying attention to your team. And
Oh,
that,
yes, for sure.
that active listening. And I go through these four pillars that I believe every person needs. Every person on the face of this planet wants to be seen, wants to be
Mm-hmm.
heard. Every person wants to feel that their life has meaning, that what they're doing every day is important. And every person on this planet wants to believe that they're part of something bigger, a movement, a community, a spiritual practice, whatever that is. They want to feel like they're part of something bigger. So, to me, as a leader, we need to be helping to fulfill all four of those pillars for our
Mm-hmm.
team. And
Yes.
I have to say, it amazes me. I have worked with everything from schools to nonprofit organizations to corporations. And I'll say, what do you know about the people that you're leading? And nine times out of 10, well, I don't know. I know that they believe in what I have to say, but how well do you know them? Do you know whether you have people with hidden talents that,
Yes.
graphic designer, somebody who's great at storytelling, someone who has got a sideline of selling chocolates. And I used to
Mm-hmm.
say this to schools. They're so busy doing these fundraisers where they'll partner with these big companies that are making a fortune to sell certain products or whatever. But what about the people who are the parents within your school, where you could raise them up, create community, where you've got someone who's making aprons on a sideline as a
Yeah.
business, or chocolates that they're doing as a cottage industry, where you can help the people who are working under your umbrella, and you can help them rise. You're helping the entire organization rise at the same time.
Hmm. And I love that you bring that up because it's really important to know who people are that are under us, but beyond work. Not that we're digging, we're not going to dig. We're going to allow them to share because they feel welcome and heard and have a purpose and, community feel. Um, what I'm curious about for you is when it comes to communicating this. So we want to communicate our teams that we want to hear from you. We want to communicate inspiration. We want to communicate vision and we want to make sure values align. So let's talk communication, which is a massive topic. So we'll just keep it to how do we inspire and motivate and help people feel welcome, heard, you valued with purpose, those types of things. So give us like a couple of strategies because we could probably talk all afternoon about this. So maybe a couple strategies that help leaders who are struggling with this.
For me, and I believe everybody finds their own path, and that
Mm-hmm.
there's more than one path to the top of the mountain. And one leader might do this through great storytelling skills. Somebody else might do it through a sense of humor. Somebody else might say, I'm not that comfortable, even though I'm a leader. My path has always been to be authentic
Mm-hmm.
and to share. There's this concept that if you're a leader, you have to be untouchable. It's almost like you're supposed to be inhuman. You can't express emotions. You can't be too
Yeah,
engaged.
share anything.
You won't look
Yeah.
professional. We have this concept of what being professional is. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to redefine that within
Mm-hmm.
leadership as well. What's being professional? And for me, it's always been being authentic, letting everybody know, being transparent. This is the path that we're on. And when we hit the blips, not to wait until they're past, but to share that and to say
Mm-hmm.
these are some of the challenges that we're facing, and to share that, but to have that not where I just come across as I'm the one who's laying down the law, to say this is a two-way street. I want
Mm-hmm.
to I want to hear your ideas. Um, and so that I can take those into consideration too. One of my offshoots, I spent many years working in the theater, and I had a director once that I really loved that concept. I brought this into leadership to say, as a director, they would say, okay, we're all playing parts, and I want to hear your interpretation, and I want to hear your input and your ideas. But at the end of the day, I'm the director, and the final decision is mine because it's my head on the chopping block. And you
Yeah, yeah.
all sign up for that as we go. But I've used a lot of the things that I've learned from all these different unconventional paths that I've been on to layer back into leadership. And I feel that within any organization or business, that those that are in these leadership positions forget to tap into their experience, their expertise, just as what we've experienced being human beings.
Hmm.
To know the ins and outs, because that all adds to creating an environment that is more open, that's more conscious,
Hmm.
that's more aware. And to me, that's the leadership for the 21st century. And when I
Hmm.
talk about unconventional, with that, I say leadership with values, leadership with ethics, leadership that is communicating so that we're working, creating communities, because
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
bottom line. I work in so many different areas, and you hear people talking about what's happening politically, whether it's locally, it's nationally, it's internationally, climate change, all these different things. And what I encourage people to focus on is things change back and forth, information changes back and forth, but what doesn't change is community. And what
Hmm.
you can do to start, that has nothing to do with anything else, what you do to begin creating community within the group that you're working with, then within your town, your village, your city, and going for partnerships, collaborations, and how
Hmm.
you keep building this community bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you're doing that with ethics and with a very clear set of values, you tend to be pairing with other groups that you learn from each other of how to step that up to the next rung of the ladder.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think community is a strong piece that can be missing in a lot of organizations. Let's really think about how you said it earlier, redefining being professional is not the traditional way anymore. If you want to grow and thrive and you want your team to grow and thrive, you have to get beyond the traditional thought process around being professional. I also want to come back to something that you touched on, which is seeking the ideas of your own employees and asking them. Yes, you're the final decision maker, agreed. But when you ask for those ideas, you almost allow them to be very creative, be innovative, and you may hear things that you're like, I never thought of that. That's the perfect way forward.
Absolutely. And let me give you one more step on that.
Mhm.
I, I have spent 40 years studying Jungian psychology. And so you would think that I would know better. I have always loved having meetings where they're like brainstorming
Mhm.
meetings where I can hear these ideas and innovations and things from staff members. Now, you would think with 40 years of background in studying psychology, I would know better. I didn't realize I had a staff member that never said anything in these meetings. And it was only because I was aware enough to know that this was somebody who was very talented, but they never spoke up. What was the deal? And we had a private meeting, and I said, explain to me what's happening here. And he said, Julie, I'm just not really good thinking on my feet. And I said,
Mhm.
but you come up with so many amazing ideas. And he said, yes, but it takes me a day or two to come up with them. And I went, hello, Julie, wake up, because not exactly the same way I do. People need time to process things. And from that day on, it's been paying attention to those people that you don't always hear from. And I completely shifted gears to say, if somebody has ideas, this is kind of like a brainstorming session, but it doesn't end now. when you go home, you think you're in the shower, you're in the car, you have this idea 2 days later, I want you to come back because this is
Hmm.
not just within this confined session. This continues. And I found it wasn't just this one gentleman that I had working with me. I had a number of people who went, well, I said this in the meeting, but now that I've really thought it through, I'm having second thoughts and I'm thinking of a different pathway. And it keeps the conversation going, which I think is really,
Hmm.
really important.
And you hit it right there, the nail on the head when you're talking about how people are different. Not everybody thinks on the spot, and it's really important to know our employees because you're right, that quiet person may be quiet because they need that day to process whatever it is you just said, or they take in information differently, whatever might be going on, we need to allow them time to process. Now, if that deadline's today, then maybe you can't allow so much for that. But most times that is not the case with brainstorming or solution-based things. So give them the space, right? Allowing them and encouraging them to bring that information back when they have it and really allowing that space for them to process their ideas. You will be amazed. I love brainstorming. And we used to give 2 days before we came back and looked at the list and people could provide it when I did it. I love it. I love it. I think it's a great way to be creative and innovative and realize that leaders, you don't always have the right answer. You might have an answer, but it may not be the right one. Or if you're stuck, it's a great way to become unstuck on a problem as well, right? If you can't figure it out, somebody probably will.
Exactly. And that's where also started in terms of getting stuck working on strategic action plans. For many years, I
Mhm.
would get hired, paid big dollars to write a strategic plan for a company. And you come up with this huge plan based on interviewing everybody and this lovely 90-page thing that sits on somebody's bookshelf.
Yes,
And they
exactly. Gets
bring it out
dusty.
the next year and go, oh, I guess we need to pay you all over again to update the strategic plan. And when this is crazy, and it doesn't need to be very long. We need strategic action plans
Hmm.
with that key word being action, where we're checking in on them. It could be a one-page plan. I
Hmm.
actually do workshops to start with just the one-page plan. And I think about how many groups will hire someone that just has a form that we just fill out all the check boxes and we're going to make your
Hmm.
plan exactly, like everybody else's. And everything is the same. No, each group is different. Each group is made up of
Hmm.
different personalities. And to come up with a plan that's going to work for your group, that's comfortable for your group. You're going to say,
Hmm.
we need to get more marketing out there. Oh, but we hate social media, but we like this. We like emails. Well, this is different and should be focused for every group what they're most comfortable with.
Hmm.
If I come in and I say, but this is the way that it needs to be done, and you're not comfortable with it, you're not going to do it.
Hmm.
There
Yeah.
are times when you hit that wall and you go, well, this was part of our strategic action plan, but it's not working. Well, then it's time to trim the sails and take a different direction. But you're not going to do that unless you're constantly revisiting your strategic action.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
in the book that I wrote, I've shared the lessons that I've learned in terms of business and nonprofit, organizational leadership, and growth. And I've shared how I've dealt with different issues, but I specifically have highlighted 20 different people and groups from around the world who are doing amazing things that I call them fireflies to show that if this is the concept that I'm trying to get across in a chapter, here's how I do it. Here's how two other people do it that are different than I am.
Hmm.
They, this, it's like when you get these books about the best diet, you have to follow my diet or you're not going to lose
Yeah.
weight. The only way to do it. And the concept is no, there are many paths to the top of the mountain. And
Hmm.
here's what I did, but here are two different ways within each chapter to say other ways to think. One
Hmm.
of my big sayings is that the world needs, we don't need more activists, we need more thought leaders.
Yes.
that take
Absolutely,
action.
absolutely. And I love that you talk about, when we welcome diversity of thought and more thought leadership, we get a lot more with those strategic plans moving forward, and we're all allowed to be different, and you just get better outcomes. And I
Yeah,
like to add to yours, for me, it's planning plus action will get you nowhere if you don't follow up on it. So the follow up is huge. You can't just plan and be done with it for the year and check on it next year, right? You actually have to create the action and then take action, as you said, and follow up. Because if we don't follow up, maybe that action, oh, I couldn't do it today and I forget about it. It's a follow up is a huge piece of what you alluded to as well. So I think that is crucial when we're thinking about planning, taking action, doing it, not just saying it, and follow through before that year is over for sure.
right.
What? Yeah, go ahead.
And you had to say about diversity, I think is super important. We need diversity in thought as well
Hmm.
as culture. But one of my rules of thumb is anytime that I can, when someone's starting out with something or they're looking to bring in an advisory committee, or we have too many youth-led movements or senior-led movements. And it's a guys, we need diversity in terms of age and generations. We need most of the projects that I work on will be represented by an average minimum of 4 generations because you need
Excellent.
people who have been through the ringer, who are older or even retired, who say, let me remind you to have a good time with what you're doing.
Yes.
That this all goes really fast. You need people who are at the top, of maybe their game professionally, maybe their 40s, their 50s, and the people who are still figuring this out in the 30s and teenagers. And you need that 10-year-old who says, okay, guys, but I'm bored. It's time to play, because we all have to remember if we want to be creative in terms of moving forward, we need to play. So there needs to be that age balance as
Hmm.
look at things from different perspectives.
I love that you remind us all to play. I think it's important. We may play differently now. Maybe we go swimming or for a hike or we go, whatever. But yeah, really important to make sure we keep that personal piece in there because it keeps us clear-minded as leaders.
Right.
This has been a great conversation. I'm wondering if there's that key takeaway you want to give our audience today that you want them to remember if they take nothing else today. Well, what would you say that is?
If nothing else today, know that the world needs more leaders. We need good leaders, and leadership starts with yourself. It's
Mhm.
leading and embracing the power that we all bring with us every single day, and to know that we do have the power to change things, but we have to access that within ourselves before we're able to share that with the world. And then I would encourage everyone to come and join my community.
Mhm, yeah.
Where we just work at empowering, encouraging, and inspiring everyone.
Love it. Love it. So before we go today, if our audience was interested in more about your book or how to find you online, where can they find that?
Anybody can find me on www.extraordinaryfireflies.com. And on the website, there's the link to all of the social media pages, but there's a free download of exercises that I call Flying Lessons for Fireflies to get you started right now. And it puts everyone on an email address where the whole purpose is not sales or anything, it's to encourage. It's because I believe that everyone just once a week needs a small note of encouragement and inspiration to remind them to keep going. You're allowed to get
Yeah,
tired. You're allowed to say, I'm frustrated, but you're not allowed to give up.
I love that. Thank you so much for all that valuable resources that you have out there. And thank you again for sharing all your insights today, Julie.
Thank you. This has been wonderful.
Of course, both of us would like to thank you, our audience. We hope you gained some valuable insights and information from today's conversation with Julie. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a great rating. This helps us and our guests, like Julie, reach even more leaders with helpful stories, resources that Julie just shared, tips, and advice. We love helping other leaders grow and thrive. If this episode got you thinking, I'd love to hear what stood out for you. Head over to LinkedIn, connect with me, and feel free to share your takeaway. Leadership is better when we do it together. For more information about all of our Amplifying Leadership services, please visit us at amplifyingleadership.ca, a division of Twin Life Coaching and Business Services. Until next time, remember, leadership matters.